What's up, Taiwan? I'm Leslie Liao with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. High-profile figures from around the world have been convening in Taipei for security talks. As Chris Gordon reports, speakers are promoting Taiwan's sovereignty at the Ketagalan Forum.
Former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations and Republican presidential contender Nikki Haley says that Taiwan should have full membership in the United Nations. She made the comment during her speech at a security dialogue in Taipei known as the Ketagalan Forum.
Taiwan shouldn't just be in the WHO. Taiwan should be a full member in the United Nations. You have every right to sit at the same table with the world's countries.
Haley did not mention the upcoming U.S. election or the candidate that she has endorsed, Republican nominee Donald Trump. It's a notable omission and may reflect the two's rocky political relationship. The two went through a bruising Republican primary this year in which Haley was often very critical of Trump. Now, Haley also said that the world should embrace Taiwan without apology.
The West must embrace Taiwan without exception or apology. We should have fought harder when China shoved you aside years ago. Now we should right that wrong. There's still time.
Haley could still be a contender for future presidential elections, especially if Trump is defeated. And this speech could be a preview of what a Haley foreign policy might look like. John Su and Chris Gordon for TaiwanPlus.
A leading politician in the opposition Taiwan People's Party has been suspended from the party for 3 years. TPP legislator Vivian Huang's suspension comes amid an ongoing finance scandal in the party over its accounts in this year's presidential election. Huang was in charge of the campaign. An accountant and another staff member have been kicked out of the party. Huang will be able to stay on as a legislator. She has apologized and says she accepts responsibility for the scandal.
总干事责无旁贷，我绝对也不是一个恋战的人。重点是要把善后的工作做好，理清相关的责任，给社会个交代，是我最重要的任务。
Suspended Hsinchu Mayor Anne Gao has been sentenced to 10 months in prison for falsely accusing an academic of defamation. Gao sued U.S.-based academic Chen Shifen for defamation after he accused her of plagiarizing her doctoral thesis. However, a Taipei court acquitted Chen of the charges. Chen then countersued Gao, resulting in the 10-month sentence. Gao also faces up to 7 years for embezzlement and says she'll appeal the latest sentence. Representatives from Taiwan's ruling Democratic Progressive Party and Japan's ruling Liberal Democratic Party are meeting in Tokyo. It's the 5th such meeting between the two countries' governing parties and a chance for Taiwan and Japan to strengthen their relations in the absence of formal ties. This time, the two sides are expected to discuss issues such as security in the Asia-Pacific region. Chip giant TSMC has broken ground on its new fab in Dresden, Germany. It comes as Europe looks to safeguard its chip supply. Our reporter Chris Gordon spoke to Frank Bosenberg from Germany Industry Association Silicon Saxony about the impacts of the new plant.
So first of all, what do you see as being the main impacts of this new German chip factory once it's built?
First, it's again another major fab in the same size as the ones by Infineon or GlobalFoundries. So it increases the diversity just by the players itself. It will help to internationalize the entire region, namely by Taiwanese and further on Asian community that we really expect to grow. And last but not least, it will also have an impact on the supplier base, which will be also more internationalized and more diversified. So it's really strengthening the region as a whole, contributing to a very positive development that in the foreseeable future. You might know that Bosch and Infineon are also part of the joint venture that together with NXP and of course the major shareholder TSMC forms ESMC, which actually broke ground today.
What about labor? There's been reporting of conflicts between TSMC and its Arizona workers. Do you know if any extra steps have been taken to address this issue in Germany?
We have seen several delegations from Taiwan, of course, led by TSMC here on this issue already. And the new managing director of ESMC, Christian Keutsch, is a former fab manager of Bosch. just by the setup of the main staff of ESMC alone, this challenge is tackled to some extent. And then I also take trust in TSMC that they learn from experiences they made. So I won't expect those challenges to occur in the effect as we saw it in the US.
Would you like to see more TSMC factories in Saxony?
Of course I do. Of course I do. I mean, it's an economy of scale, and it's a typical way of extending existing production facilities in a site that you already have. We have seen this by the existing players already, and of course I hope that TSMC will also do so.
That was Frank Bosenberg of Silicon Saxony talking about TSMC's new fab in Germany. A bus carrying Pakistani pilgrims has overturned in central Iran, killing at least 28 people and injuring more than 20 others. The bus was en route to one of Islam's holiest sites in Iraq when the driver lost control, crashing and sparking a brief fire. Officials say the crash was caused by high speed and a faulty braking system. Among the injured people, at least 7 remain in critical condition. The government is teaming up with religious leaders to fight fraud in Taiwan. The heads of 20 religious organizations have agreed to help educate their followers about the dangers of scams. Fraud is becoming increasingly rampant in Taiwan. The first half of the year saw scammers make off with nearly $163 million, putting them well on the way to surpassing the $275 million they stole in the whole of 2023. President Lai Ching-te has made beating rising fraud in Taiwan a priority, pledging to raise funding for the cause fivefold next year. Taiwan's top breakdancer has made history at an international hip-hop festival in the Netherlands. His impressive performance comes just 2 weeks after competing at the Paris Olympics. Did you feel the earth shake? This is Taiwan's Olympic breakdancer, Quake. Shortly after the Paris Games, the b-boy headed to the Netherlands to compete in the notorious IBE, a major international hip-hop dance festival. And while there, he made history, becoming the first ever Taiwanese breakdancer to advance to the breakdancing finals. Though he didn't win it all, losing to Venezuelan breaker Alvin, he still managed to outperform over 300 competitors to take second place. But Quake says the pressures of putting on a historic performance may have affected him in the finals.
心理素质的训练跟建立吧，就是我可能要相对的再更轻松一点，再更纯粹一点，像前几轮一样。
And that was something he was able to do with his team, which made it to the top 8 of the competition.
我们没有用很杀戮的方式来 battle， 我们是有点 having fun， 我就是来有点像是传递我今天跳舞的情感。
Quake says this latest performance is still a validation of his skills. He's claimed one of the top spots at one of the world's biggest breakdancing stages, proving that both he and Taiwan have what it takes to compete with the best. Ryan Wu and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus. Produce is still suffering the effects of Typhoon Gaemi a month after the storm hit Taiwan. As John Van Trist reports, this will come to hit shoppers' wallets over the upcoming Mid-Autumn Festival, the country's barbecue season.
It's slim pickings at this outdoor vegetable market. What corn there is more than 1.5 times more expensive than it was just a few weeks ago. Typhoon Gaemi wrecked farmers' yields at a critical time. It's just a month to go until Taiwan gobbles up masses of food over the Mid-Autumn Festival. Vendors here say stretched supplies mean there's nothing they can do.
之前是30的话，现在大概就50左右。差这么多？差1倍啊！慢慢就要接受，你如果要吃，你就是要接受啊。
And it's not just farmers' markets where food is harder to come by. The storm also devastated seafood producers. This pile of oysters is just a fraction of how big it might have been had the intense wind and rain not hit the country's coastline.
一些鹅棚都被就是海浪吹走嘛，那个鹅啊的产量本来就比往年少，然后又加上台风的原因，我觉得可能稍微会调涨啊。
This pile of clamshells tells a similar story. The Southwest was hit particularly hard, leaving seafood producers like this one waiting for local officials to assess their losses and perhaps give them help.
因为我们这边都是海水养殖，所以它 雨水下得太多，淡化太严重，所以都会造成一些暴毙的死亡。这边应该死亡率应该都超过5-6成以上。
But while producers may get some compensation, for consumers, higher prices are going to be the reality for some time to come. James Lin and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
The country's biggest oyster farming town was hit badly by Gaemi, and it's struggling to get back on its feet. Tiffany Wong reports from Jiayi County.
Oyster farmer Chen Jinyin brings in the day's harvest. He's been out since 5 a.m. collecting oysters in the waters near the coastal town of Dongshi in Taiwan's southern Jiayi County, only for a measly catch. It's been a month since Typhoon Gaemi raged across Taiwan, causing nearly $5 million in damage to the county's oyster industry. But for oyster farmers like Chen, that price is much more.
你要重新打掉重练又很累啊。 1年的心血都白忙了啊！我也不知道要怎么去形容这个。
Oysters take a year to cultivate, and Typhoon Gaemi hit in July, right in the middle of peak harvesting season. The loss has farmers concerned for their businesses and livelihoods as they approach September's Mid-Autumn Festival, a major holiday for oyster consumption. Chen says the rafts he grows oysters on should each yield up to 50 buckets of oysters. But since the typhoon, he's lucky if he's able to get 10. He estimates losses of over 2,000 buckets of oysters, worth $110,000.
很多人真的是需要再贷款，还好政府有那个低利贷款，那个信贷啦，哦，要不然的话，讲实在话，这个叫我形容我也不会讲了，说你什么都涨价啊。
The effects of the typhoon are expected to be felt for months to come.
This is the main oyster harbor in Taiwan, where farmers bring in the day's catches from bamboo rafts like these far offshore. Now, the ones behind me are empty, but they'll be repaired and restocked for next year's harvest. That's when farmers hope that their lot will be back to normal.
It's a hope that the rest of the community in Dongshi carries, too. Besides oyster farmers, many women in the community are involved as shuckers, and several storefronts along the wharf are dedicated to serving all sorts of dishes featuring the shellfish, from grilled oysters to oyster omelet and vermicelli.
如果那个成本太高，然后我们又涨的话，客人的消费意愿一定会降低，所以一般大部分都是苦撑比较多。
你根本人成本呢没收回来呀，而且你要供应，再来还要准备科架。 要绑新的科架、科苗，准备明年再养嘛。
With typhoons frequent in the region, oyster farmers have come up with ways to minimize their losses.
他们可能会将他们科棚啊，那结构啊，就把它整备得更牢固啊，还是说它要定锚让它不会去流失掉。那通常啊，台风要来袭之前啊，他们也会先做抢收的动作，那可以收成的先收成起来，避免损失。
But with the damage from Typhoon Gaemi already done, all these oyster farmers can do now is pick up and start again in the next season, as they work to keep Dongshi's oyster economy running. Andy Xue and Tiffany Wong in Jiayi County for TaiwanPlus.
An endangered Formosan black bear has died of heat exhaustion after being rescued from a trap in southeast Taiwan. Forestry workers took the bear to a hospital after it was found snared on an indigenous reserve in Taidong County. The incident was the first bear rescue in the area, indicating conservation efforts there are making progress. However, recent ecological deterioration is forcing the Formosan black bear to wander further into populated areas. Officials are working with the nearby community to remove traps and monitor the animal. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, check out these highlights from an annual high diving competition in Kosovo held regularly since the end of World War II. I'm Liao. Take care and see you next time. I'm Liao in New York City, and this is TaiwanPlus News, a voice of freedom in Asia.